All right, so in today's video, we are going to talk about the weather pattern for the rest of December as well as January. And we have a storm threat potentially next week in the east. So we'll get right into it here. First, if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. I greatly appreciate it. So this is our weather pattern that we've been in here. It's been pretty cold for the eastern half of the country recently. And that's due in large part to we have a positive P&A, and we also have ridging up over parts of Alaska and into the Arctic. It's allowed those cold shots to infiltrate the eastern part of the country. As we go forward into time, but this is the GFS ensembles here, the models are indicating some changes. I think what we're going to see is, after a cold shot on, late this week, we are going to see a brief moderation in the east. But if you take a look in the west, you see that ridging still. This is now Monday, and you see that ridging still in place there in the western part of North America. Out ahead of that, we're going to have another cold shot. Big trough is going to dig into the eastern part of the country, and that's where I think we're going to have our storm threat. As we have that cold front dragging along the southern part of the United States up the east coast, I think we might have a storm system forming along that, and we'll take a look at that in just a second. Now, once that trough kind of pulls through, the GFS and a lot of the data coming in is suggesting we have at least a relaxation of this cold pattern that we're in, at least the cold pattern for the eastern part of the country, a relaxation of it, and some models are predicting really complete breakdown of it. So we'll talk about, if the kind of support that we're seeing there as far as the MJO goes, and if we think that this is going to be something that's going to stick around for a little bit, or if the models are maybe just getting a little too excited, which they tend to do sometimes when they see some changes. They really just kind of latch onto the idea and kind of run with it. But first, let's pull up the GFS here. I want to show you the storm threat for next week. So let's put this into, so this is now Wednesday. So we have our cold front diving down from the north, and we have it kind of settling in across the southern part of the United States up the east coast, and that's where we might have a storm system. A lot of the models are indicating some type of storm system forming towards the middle or end of next week, and there's going to be enough cold air on the northern side of this thing to produce some snowfall. The GFS is predicting, you can see those deep blues there, is predicting a swath of some moderate to heavy snowfall for parts of the Ohio Valley up into the Mid-Atlantic and northeast. Some of the models aren't really that excited about it at this point. Let's actually pop over to the European. If this wants to load up here. Okay, so the European does have that storm system just a good bit weaker at this point. There it is. You can see the low pressure right off the mid-Atlantic coast, and this is going to have early Friday. So all the models are really suggesting some type of storm system. What they disagree on at this point is the strength of the storm system. Confident there is going to be enough cold air if we do get a strong enough storm system to form close enough to the coast. There is going to be enough cold air on that back side. There's going to be snowfall. This is still 200 hours out, so it's not uncommon for there to be this type of disagreement this far out. But it is noteworthy that they're all showing some type of storm system. So I am pretty confident there's going to be a storm system next week, middle and end of next week. Details to be ironed out. So back to the weather pattern here. I'll talk about the GFS real quick. If I can pull that up, here we go. All right. So now if we go into, this is now right after that storm system, the GFS is now showing our pattern completely really breaking down as we now have a trough on the western part of North America, which was, if you remember, a pretty big ridge, a positive P&A and ridging up into Alaska. You now see that breaking down with a trough. So what that's going to allow to do is ridging out in front of that trough. So the eastern part of the United States, you are going to be seeing a warming trend once late next week that storm system pulls through. How long it lasts is really to be determined. And I think the culprit here, I'll go over the Madden-Julian oscillation real quick. So Madden-Julian oscillation right now is in stage 4. Stage 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, they're pretty warm phases this time of year. Now we've been in a colder phase. I should say we've been in a colder pattern for much of the country, even though the MJO has been in the warmer phases, which tells us our base pattern is going to be a colder pattern. That's due in large part we have a Hudson Bay vortex. Doesn't look like that's going anywhere. So I am a little bit skeptical that this pattern is going to completely break down, just because we've seen this pattern evolve in the warmer phases of the MJO. So part of me thinks that this is really it's a relaxation of the pattern, allowing the MJO to kind of flex his muscles a little bit. Even if we do see a complete breakdown, you can see here on the MJO, it's going to be moving into phases 7. Most likely, it's just going to continue through 8, 1, and 2. 7 is cold in December, 8, 1, 2 are cold in January. So even if, worst case scenario, if we do see a complete breakdown in this pattern, as we go into, maybe sometime around the holidays, at worst case early next year, early part of January, we'll see that cold kind of reload. And if the MJO continues into the cold phases, then we're probably looking at a cold January. So how long this relaxation lasts is really to be determined at this point. As a matter of fact, the European that just came out, let's pop over here. That's the CFS. Here we go, European. The European in the long range is not like the other models where it breaks down that ridging in Western North America for a long period of time. So this, you can see, this is the European in the long range here. So this is now Wednesday, December 18th, and you can see that ridging over Alaska. So the European is seeing more of a relaxation than a complete breakdown in the pattern. So really, this is kind of to be determined at this point. What we know now is there's going to be moderation next week. There's going to be a storm system, cold air that follows that. So it's in the middle of end of next week. And then we will see some type of relaxation where the eastern part of the United States will warm up, after that in the following week. Now, what happens after that? Does this warm pattern, does it persist into the holidays, or is it more of a relaxation? The European is suggesting it's more of a relaxation. Some of the ensembles are saying it's a complete breakdown until we get that MJO into the colder phases, which is anywhere from, say the holidays, the Christmas, till maybe early January is when we get that pattern to reload. And the CFS is actually showing that exact scenario. So this is week 1, so this is this week. Week 2, you can see the week 2, we see that breakdown where we have that trough now in Western North America, and we have that ridging starting to build up in front of that, but we still have that Hudson Bay vortex, which tells me the cold is going to become, it's not going to be far off, right? Even though if we head into a warmer pattern, we're still likely to see some colder air intrusions because of this Hudson Bay vortex. But if we move into week 3, we see that ridging coming back now into Western North America. We see our negative EPO starting to gain hold again. And then week 4, the pattern really comes back. We're now reverting back to the pattern that we've been in and we are now in. Week 5, more of the same. And then week 6. So regardless of what happens here over the next couple weeks, January looks like it's going to be cold, pretty confident, at least for the eastern part of the country. Looking like cold January. We'll just have to see if this pattern relaxation is just a relaxation for a little bit, or if it's going to be a complete breakdown. Hopefully over the next couple days. So what tends to happen is when these, look, a lot of outlets, a lot of other, weather people out there, are kind of getting excited about they're kind of jumping all in on this complete pattern breakdown. I think that's a little too quick. I like to kind of sit on things. I don't like to jump from model run to model run. That's not what I like to do. I've seen it all too often where the models will, they'll catch a relaxation in the pattern. They'll just kind of run with it. A lot of times what happens is after a few days, you see that pattern start to reload in the models and start to kind of correct itself. And I think that could happen because of our base pattern and the pattern that has come on in the warm phases of the MJO. So I think the next few days are going to be pretty telling. At this point, I think it's kind of, it's kind of 50-50 on whether or not it's a relaxation versus a complete breakdown. But regardless, pretty confident that January coming up is going to be a cold month. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.